Now, we soldiers in this. We Kodesh. Now, we soldiers in this. We Kodesh.
Most people carelessly assume that celebrating New Year's Eve is a Hebrew biblical custom, but the celebration of New Year's Eve is never once commanded in the Bible. Moses forbade it, the Messiah and the apostles never observed it. New Year's is one of the oldest, most universal celebrations of all pagan traditions. The custom has remained essentially unchanged for 4,000 years. The earliest record and arrival of a new year began in ancient Babylonia of Mesopotamia. It was a pagan Babylonian custom of ancient sun worship, 2,000 years before the birth of Christ. In around 2000 BC, the Babylonians celebrated the new year over an 11-day period. This period did not begin on January 1st as we would expect. It actually started with the Hebrew calendar, the first new moon, lunar, after the first day of spring, also known as the vernal equinox. The new year is the day that marks the time beginning of a new calendar year. The new year of the Gregorian calendar today in worldwide use falls on January 1st, continuing the practice of the Roman calendar. In Theodore Gaster's book, New Year, History, Customs, and Superstitions states, clay tablets describing the New Year festival record a program of ceremonies performed at Babylon since the remote days of the second millennium BC. The Babylonian year celebrations originally began at the vernal equinox in the month of March-April, with the new moon actually the first visible crescent, lasting 11 days around the pagan worship of their supreme god Marduk, the Esagila, the city god of Babylon. Akitu festival was the Babylonian New Year's festival, celebrated to honor the supreme god Marduk, his crown prince Nabu, and other host of gods. The name Akitu is very ancient. In the 3rd millennium BCE, the Sumerian population of southern Mesopotamia celebrated the Akiti Segur, the festival of the sowing of barley. It was celebrated in the first month of the year, that is in the March-April. In the Babylonian calendar, this month was known as Nisanu, and in the modern Hebrew calendar is still called Nisan. Since the festival was celebrated on the first days of the Babylonian year, we can call it a New Year's festival. In fact, the ancient Babylonians already called it Resitim, beginning of the year. The Babylonian culture tied the coming of the new year to nature. New Year's Eve and Day has been an important celebration and holiday since early Babylonians associated the rebirth of light and spring with agricultural prosperity. The origins of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day can be traced back to the Babylonian peoples who tied the holiday to agricultural concerns and fertility linked to various gods and worship of the sun.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
The New Year's festivities that had originated in Babylon found their way to Greece and finally to Rome. The Romans called it Saturnalia, in honor of Saturn, celebrated it between December 17th through December 23rd, which is where modern Christmas is derived from today. Among them, it was extremely popular. It was a time of revelings, drinking, bouts, orgies, ritualistic hedonism that all of the gods and goddesses of Olympus attended. The Romans and Greeks on New Year's Eve sacrificed themselves by entertainment of belly dancers, orgies, snake charmers, sooths, fortune tellers. At the climax, which was the strike of midnight, invoking of spirits were summoned, finally ending in human sacrifices. It was not until 153 BC that January was declared as the beginning of the year by the Romans. The month January was named after Janus, the mythical god of beginnings and transitions, thence also of gates, doors, doorways, endings, and time. Janus is usually a two-faced god since he looks to the future and past. The concepts of January and janitor are both based on aspects of Janus. The calendar year became much more like that used in present day. In 46 BC, when Julius Caesar established the Julian calendar, after consultation with an astronomer, he matched the calendar year with the movement of the sun and marked January 1st as the start of the new year. In February 24th, 1582, Pope Gregory XIII altered a calendar that was instituted by Julius Caesar. The Gregorian calendar was named after Pope Gregory XIII by decree, signed on February 24th, 1582. The reformed calendar was adopted by countries over the centuries and is the official universal calendar used today. The motivation for the Gregorian reform was that the Julian calendar assumes that the time between vernal equinoxes is 365.25 days, when in fact it is presently almost exactly 11 minutes shorter. January 1st is the coldest winter season of the year in temperature climates, which has no agricultural significance due to failed crops. Nothing grows. Winter is associated with the Earth's lowest state opposite of summer, death, hibernation, cold, dark, and wet. The celebration of the new year is purely arbitrary, out of the tradition and customs of men. In the springtime, March, April, Hebrew months Abib, Nisan, the time around the true birth of the Messiah, is a logical and biblical time the Most High states his new year. After all, it's the season of planting new crops and blossoming, regrowth, rebirth, whereas January 1st is associated with death. Everything in the earth dies and hibernates. Let's go more into depth of what the Bible states the new year really is. The customs and traditions of New Year's today are derived from Babylon and Rome. There are a number of superstitious traditions that began many years ago that have lost their meaning in present day. Typically, these traditions were enacted to influence the luck one would have in the coming year. For example, New Year's Eve parties began due to the belief that what one did on the first day of the year could affect their luck. This is why parties go past midnight and into the new year, and it also explains why they involve lots of family and friends.